everybody, and welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. As always, I'm Al Cabrera. That's Mike Wolfgang. Welcome to day one of our high school football extravaganza. Mike, welcome in. How's it going?
It's going all right. I didn't know what shirt to wear today. The Penguins start tonight. Both my football teams got big games this weekend, so
I think what you need to do as we move along in the show and into the season, you just unfortunately have to cut up all of them and make it into one super shirt.
Make it like a collage or something like that.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
You need a super shirt. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you want to be taken seriously in the industry, you need one.
You got to rep all your
that's
teams,
all there is. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, going here into Friday Night Football, obviously this is the Thursday show, but weather for tomorrow, it's not looking great at the moment. 50 degrees at 8 o'clock for the Youngstown region. Obviously, outside of it, we cover a huge area up by the lake. It's going to be colder. It's going to be windier. We're looking at about 8 to 15 mile an hour winds in just the Youngstown region. So, Mike, it's going to be another weather week. And we saw last week that affected a lot of teams' ability to throw the football. And so I think coming in this week, it's a big thing to watch out for. Our really good passing teams are going to slow down and perhaps struggle, potentially get upset if they're going up against a team that can run the football.
Well, and we'll see how that factors in because, starting last night, there was some rain. It's windy today, it looks like. But, I'm sure that'll carry on over the weekend. But I'm interested to see, and we'll talk about some of these teams that have higher-powered offenses like you just touched on. The passing game, it's going to force them to play different ways that they haven't played late in the year. This week 9, for some teams getting, going some games that you only have a couple left. So that's going to be an adjustment for some teams that are going to the playoffs because that's going to be that way in the playoffs too.
Yeah, this is a real test, a real preview for what everybody is going to see, what they're going to face. I'm interested to see how they handle it. And I think, you have one team tonight, Austintown Fitch. That's going to be our first game playing home against Boardman. And, I'm not overly concerned about them losing this game because we saw them in tough weather conditions last week, go on the road in a big environment in Wadsworth, a Division I school, and they took them to 4 overtimes. That's the part I'm concerned about. They went 4 overtimes a week ago. I know they've had a week off, but, how is that conditioning going to factor into what happens with them tonight? Or are they still on fresh legs? You're week 9 of the season, and you've played basically now an extra, 4 quarters. Thanks to those overtimes. I know it doesn't exactly equal that, but Boardman's a tough physical team, and I know they don't have the best offense, and I think that is going to hurt them tonight. I still think, you've seen them against good team last week in Dover in bad weather. They held them to 28 points. And early in the year, their defense wasn't great, but you've gotten a little bit colder. In the last 3 weeks, they're allowing about 24 points a game over their last 3 games. Now, their offense isn't going to get there, but I think this is going to be one of the lower offensive scoring games for Fitch this season. They have only not scored above 35 points once on the season. That was their loss to Massillon, Washington. I don't think they lose, but I don't think they hit 35 in this game. Not with the weather, not with the stiff Boardman defense coming in against them. I'm going to take Fitch ultimately because they are the better team, and I don't think there's really a question on that. But I think Boardman, with some good defense, can make it hard for Fitch going into Friday night.
And by the way, I don't know if you saw when we were coming on, but your screen's black right now. Just want to let you know.
Okay.
But as Alec was touching on, I think I agree with him. I think it's going to be hard for a Fitch team that like Alex said, it's a better team in this matchup. And I think after that overtime game, maybe things with tying with the overtime game playing a little bit longer last week with the weather. I think Austintown Fitch can be a little bit not what we've seen the last couple of weeks or pretty much whole season up until last week. And them being on the home, I think that's going to have some comfort level too. I'm not going to pick Fitch to lose at home for how high we've been on them all year. For the okay season Boardman's had, I don't expect them to walk into Fitch to get a big win like this. And I don't think they have what it really takes to slow down Fitch's offense. We'll see, like what we said, what the weather does, how that that game last week kind of going further than they kind of wanted to in a 4 overtime game. That's a marathon. That's almost 2 games in 1 week. So I don't think Boardman could slow down this Fitch offense. They put up about what a minimum of 38. Oh, you're back in now.
Okay.
But I was saying, I don't think tying in that 4 overtime game last week with the weather, and this game's at home too. After what we talked about with Fitch all year, I just don't expect Boardman to go in there and beat them. So that's why I'm rolling Fitch.
Yeah, I mean, I think Fitch is ultimately going to win this game. Sorry, I'm choking on water apparently here in the
You're
middle
good.
of the show. Fitch currently they stayed put at the 4 seed for Division II Region 5. So I mean, we're going to expect them to play very good the rest of this year out. You probably don't see them losing again. They have Warren G. Harding next week. I think this week's a real test of what that matchup next week is going to be, because both teams are very physical teams. And pardon me,
Wrong two.
I think, I think both are two very physical teams, and Fitch is going to get just some strong football to go into it. I think it's going to help him because it's not going to be competitive, but it's going to challenge him because you're going up against good defensive schools, and that's a big thing for me for this Fitch team. However, where Boardman sits right now, their 4-4 record, this is must-win football. They're a 17 seed, and when you look above them, there isn't right now a winless team outside of the Rhodes School of Environmental Studies who has a losing record and is in the playoffs. So, I mean, this is must-win football for Boardman this week.
Yeah, it is, and it's a tough task. Like I said, it's against a Fitch team we've been talking about all year, up there with South Range, up there with all these other teams that we think are playing really good teams, and Fitch only watches against this last one. So I think it's a tall task for Boardman to go in. But like I said, I got to go with Fitch for that reason because the way we've been talking about him all year.
Game 2, this is going to be a good one, Mike. Brookfield, Garfield. Kind of one of these games we've been waiting for all year. I think we all had it circled. Week 9, this was going to be the real test for both these teams. It was going to decide who took the conference. It's going to decide, where these two teams are going to finish postseason-wise. Brookfield is a 7th spot. This is the only hard game they have an opportunity to win. I mean, the Ursuline game, they had no shot. I think everybody's realized that. But you look at their schedule. Who have they faced? Nobody. Springfield now, yeah, they've turned it around. But Springfield then, no. Springfield now might give Brookfield a shot, if they had a rematch, say, week 11. But I think this is that first test for Brookfield to really see what they are in a 7 seed right now. They're going up against the Garfield squad, who is cream of the crop. I mean, they've been kind of the best team for a couple of years in this conference since they joined, and they're a 7 seed Division 5. A win like this goes a long way to cementing all the thoughts we have about Brookfield and what they could be potentially going into the postseason. They have Champion next week. It shouldn't be a challenge. Champion is on a bad losing skid, and they're not likely to turn around against Brookfield in week 10. Garfield coming into this, I mean, what's not to like about them? They've won by 40 points each of the last 3 weeks. They're killing people right now. I mean, it's insane. They're absolutely insane, and their only loss is by 1 point to JFK. And I mean, it's a really, really good team, and maybe the hardest thing about it is the style of offense that is run by this Garfield team. It's what makes it so difficult to defend, because I saw this matchup 2 years ago, and Garfield, it was before they joined the MVAC. They came in, they saw Brookfield standing there, and they just laughed them off and rolled them over. It was close by halftime. They hit their first field goal in 3 years, and they haven't looked back since. And this matchup has been, kind of Garfield's to lose. Now, I was talking with Randy Clark earlier in the year, and we were kind of discussing what this game was going to be, what they're going to do for it, and really, what he had told me, this was when I was at the Newton Falls game a couple weeks ago. He said, we're tearing down the defense. Everything has to change to go up against this Garfield team. And I think that's a really big commitment from Randy Clark, who's run a defense this year that, I mean, practically is one of the best around. No one has had time to throw against it. It's dominated every run game they've gone against. They've gone super heavy on blitz packages, in which guarantee every time the opposing team snaps the football, there are a minimum of 5 guys running to the quarterback or running on that defensive line, which is just something you do not see at really this level, because you'll normally see 4 guys on the line. Brookfield has no problem. They will put 5, 6. They're going to put a delayed blitz with one of their Mike linebackers. They're going to put linebackers down on the edge. They will come at you with a 5-man front of 6'4" defensive ends all on the line. It's a really impressive lineup for him, and it's worked to perfection. And now I go in here, and he's like, I'm tearing it down. Everything has to change because it creates too many holes against that wing T offense that Garfield runs. And Garfield has won both of the matchups here. The game I called in 2020, 46-7. Brookfield, a lot better last year. It was 31-17. And, you still go back to that game and you go, all right, what could Brookfield have done differently? It's kind of hard to find because passing-wise, they did all right. They probably could have passed the ball better. They had 129 rushing yards. And their offense was all pretty good. I mean, Isaiah Jones may have had the best day in his career, going for 139 yards. I think I might have been on the call for this. I don't remember if it was. I think it was a home game.
I think you and Matt were both there. Yeah, it was one game of the game. That was the game I was there helping you guys out doing some camera.
Yeah, so this is the first time they've done this matchup now in Garfield. Yeah. And last year, Garfield they only threw it 7 times. I expect that to stay the same. Anthony Dema only rushed it 13 times, but he had 2 touchdowns and 159 yards. No Dema, but this Garfield team arguably has gotten better over the last year of playing football. And they come into this matchup now at home. First time we get this big matchup in their stadium. And you come in with the quarterback with Eric Geddes, who throws the ball a lot more. Not a ton, but a lot more than what you saw last year out of him. And they've come at you now with really a 5-headed monster that they can go to. I mean, their top guy in Grace, 744 yards. Their second guy in Sell has 690 yards. And then they still have 3 other guys over 200 yards rushing on the season. And by the way, both their top rushers have 11 rushing touchdowns. They're a team right now with 38 rushing touchdowns this season. How do you even stop it? Because we haven't seen anybody outside of JFK be able to do it. And we know JFK is a big, very heavy, very physical team. And in that game, they forced Eric Geddes to go 2 for 7 throwing the football. When they throw it, you have to stop it. And I think that's the biggest test for Brookfield's defense tomorrow, going up against this team who is going to run the ball. They put up 333 yards against Warren JFK in the loss. They had 3 rushing touchdowns in the loss, but they stopped the trick plays. They stopped the big throws that Garfield looks for. They will come at you all night long with that wing T, and then out of nowhere, they go from that formation, spread out the field, and they'll throw it deep. And your defense, which has been designed to go up against the run in this wing T style offense, is now looking at a spread, something they haven't seen all game long. It either burns them there, or you run this play action and a tight end. In this formation, tight ends slip out every single time. Unless you have one guy that goes on your defense, you attach one of your safeties and go, you're on one tight end, you're on the other. If they get past you, you owe me 100 laps in practice. And that's kind of the way you have to go, because it's those 2 guys that are going to sneak out of the formations and take just little 5-10 yard out routes, and they're going to get the ball. Quarterback's on the run. They're going to just grab it, turn, and no one's there because everyone's playing at the offensive line. So this is going to be a real test for Brookfield's defense. I think their offense is going to do all right. I mean, I know Garfield is a good defense, and it's been a big reason why they've been able to limit Brookfield's scoring abilities in the last couple of seasons in this matchup. But I think after they went from 7-17 in the last 2 matchups, I think they can get into the 20s. If they can make this a 30-point game with both of them, I think I like Brookfield's offense to have that better shot, because when you're a run-style team, you're kind of relying most of the time on low-scoring battles. It plays to your style so well because time of possession, you can kind of use that on your side in those lows, hard-fought games. And I think that's what Garfield has to do. Keep it low scoring. I know they've gone 35-plus in each of the last 2 games, but I think this is a matchup going into this year against a very experienced Brookfield team. Everyone on this Brookfield roster that is going to start has seen this Garfield team twice now. They should be very well prepared. This should come out as the game of the week.
And we know, like you said, Brookfield, we know they have good athletes. These guys have been there for the last couple matchups with this. We saw them last year in this matchup. And as you were talking, I was trying to think back about that matchup last year. From what I remember, it just seemed like, Garfield jumped out early. It wasn't a blowout, but they jumped out early. You kind of felt like it was going to be that way. But Brookfield, they held their own. They kept chipping away. They couldn't make, big conversions. They couldn't, I was trying to think, there were some plays down in the end zone. They couldn't convert down in the red zone, but they had their chances. And I think if you're going to, this one being on the road at Garfield, you got to convert those opportunities when you have them, when they present themselves to you, because that's how you're going to have to beat Garfield. And like you said, I think if it's a 30-ish point game, I think that favors Brookfield, because that's pretty much what they've been averaging, at least scoring the last 2 weeks. So I think that favors them. But like I said, again, you got to be able to convert down in the red zone. You got to convert 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. You got to be able to get those in your favor. So that's a big chest for Brookfield, and that's stuff they couldn't capitalize on last year in this matchup.
And Mike, to your point about that being, Garfield jumping out early and Brookfield came back, it was 24-0 at halftime last year. Yeah. And then Garfield scored one put-away touchdown at the very end as Brookfield had crawled back. It was 24-17, and Garfield put in that final touchdown. And I think that's a big difference, right, when I'm talking about making this a close game, because it came so close. If Brookfield had got a score early in the game, they could have won this. And there's just, when it's this low scoring, and like I said, 30 points, they could have won that. They didn't. Garfield was better last year. I think Brookfield might have the upper hand. I'm the Brookfield guy. I have been for the last 2 years. I'm taking them in this matchup. I've been wrong twice before on it. We'll see what I am this time.
I want to pick Brookfield too, but actually no. I just think it's just again, I know this is some of these guys' last chance at Garfield, and I think that's really going to kind of make this matchup pretty interesting, because they know what to expect. Whether you're going to win the game or not, you know what's going to come. But sometimes you still think you're on the road this time. You can't shoot yourself in the foot with penalties either. I think that's another big thing about going on the road. I kind of like Garfield at home in this matchup.
I think that home field advantage is going to give them a lot. I've seen Brookfield, especially when they've gone on the road, those penalties do climb up. They're a lot better than they were the last 2 years with penalties, though. Give them credit on that. But we'll see how that plays out. Next game, I think this is actually a very challenging game to pick. Campbell Memorial at 2-6 on the road, taking on Newton Falls, who's also 2-6. Campbell comes off a win. Newton Falls have lost their last two, 34-0 to Brookfield, 20-6 to Liberty. And I think both of these teams kind of just on the bad side of a season. I mean, there have been opportunities for Newton Falls to win games this year, but they just can't seem to get it done. And that was my thought last week when they went against Liberty. If that's a close, low-scoring game, they're not going to win. They have to pull away, or at least in the 2 games they won have been shutouts. Anytime a team scores against them, they lose. That's going to be very hard to do. Now you look at Campbell, both games they've won have been 21-14. So what does that tell you? Newton Falls is going to score. So is Campbell. So I don't think it's going to end 21-14 for the third time for Campbell to win it. But I think I kind of like Campbell, especially coming off a win against Champion, who did beat this Newton Falls team a few weeks back. I mean, it's a while ago at this point. I was all the way back a month ago. A month ago is when Newton Falls lost. I think this Newton Falls team is a lot different. And so is Campbell. I think they've both adapted a lot in the last month of football. I think Campbell's gotten better, and I think Newton Falls has kind of gotten worse. I hate to say it, but I just feel like, yeah, they got that win over LeBray in the last 5 weeks, but I think there's been a loss of energy from them. And when you lose energy late in the season, I think it kills your opportunity to get anything done. They are 24 seed right now in Newton Falls. Not likely going to make it. Campbell, they're actually a higher seed. There's a 20th seed right now. And a win here, while it probably doesn't put them into a spot to make the playoffs, a win over LeBray in the final week and Campbell goes 4-6, they'd have an opportunity maybe to find that 16 spot in the postseason. And if you looked at this team early in the year after the Valley Christian Louisville loss and you said, you can still make the playoffs, especially after Crestview whacked them 63-0. And you go, you can make the playoffs, I don't think they would have believed you, because they've had a very good turnaround. I know they still have not been winning games. They're still getting blown out. But I feel even though they're getting blown out, that last week for me really kind of felt like a momentum shift for Campbell.
Well, and I think that too in this matchup. Obviously, when you're 2-6, you're both playing each other, it's about out 2-6 records. You're gonna have a lot of similarities with their scores in their previous games, and some of their games they played the same teams. But like you said, it's just maybe it is a momentum factor, because I think that when at home against champions not great, but I think that's a good win for Camel to kind of get that at home late in the year after these last couple games they've had. Look at these scores they've given up. I know it's against Garfield. They're a way better team than Camel. But 56 points, 42 to Liberty, who's not that great, but like we talked about the other day, is playing better since the quarterback change. 52 to Brookfield, 63-0 to Crestview, who Crestview is not having a great year either. I think just that part of it for Camel, and I think to come back against a decent opponent last week and win that one close, maybe it's somewhat of a momentum factor. So I'm going to pick them because of that. This one is I think this one's on the road though, but I maybe kind of like him to go on the road after getting a big home win like that. And it's in third of all because it's my dad's alma mater, so I'm picking him.
Good reason to pick, Mike. Good reason. Next game up, JFK going to Cleveland Central Catholic. Mike, this is quick. Cleveland Central Catholic has not won a game. It will not start here. Aquinas forfeited against this JFK team a week ago. So JFK is just continuing to have a really good season. They're now 7-1. They should roll these final 2 weeks into the number 1 seed in the postseason. I don't think anyone is going to challenge them for a while in the postseason. And I really, really like where JFK sits right now. They should be looking to take home the crown.
I like where they're at too. We talked about earlier in the year that big time win, a 1-point victory over Garfield, who is strong. There's nothing in this match. We're going JFK.
Columbiana and Leetonia. Leetonia loses the rivalry game a week ago in the Spaghetti Bowl. Now, Columbiana finally picked up their first win of the season, and they got their head coach his 200th win. Bob Spate finally hits 200. He was stuck at 199 after last year, and he has to wait till week 8 to finally get it. I'm saying Spate gets back-to-back, make it 201 on the road in Leetonia.
I'm in the same boat as you two. I think getting that first win coming home against this one's on the road, but at Leetonia, who has not had a great year. Talk about the problems. They just don't have enough. They just don't have enough talent. They
don't have enough players.
That's
the fact.
They're struggling to even have a football team right now. So I just think they've gone through too much turmoil this year. I don't think Columbiana is that great, obviously being 1-7, but I think in this matchup that's where you're going to lean.
Yeah, Leetonia right now, tied for 25th, and let's see where Columbiana sits. Columbiana is 22nd right now in Division 6, Region 21. Kind of in the same place as Campbell right now in Newton Falls. I mean, if you win out, you might have a spot at 16. But really, I think Columbiana, they're headhunting right now. East Palestine last week, Leetonia this week, Lisbon next week. I think this is an opportunity right now for Columbiana to find some momentum to take into next year. This isn't about the postseason. This is about building towards the future. I think it's a game they really need. And when you look at those common opponents, East Palestine being the one I think to look at, a month ago, Leetonia lost 34-0 to East Palestine. Columbiana, well, they just won 46-14. I don't think this one is going to be all that close. It should be a pull away for Columbiana.
And we were talking the other day about rebuilding teams. In the situation that both these teams are, but Columbiana at least has a win under the belt. Beat these teams that you're supposed to beat. That's where you start in rebuilds. Beat the team you're supposed to beat. And then, like I always say, try to get a game against teams that nobody's picking you to win. This is a game that they need to win.
Yeah, next game. It's another game I'm torn on because I don't think Crestview is all that great. And they're going on the road, taking on the Golden Flash as a champion, who are coming in on just a miserable losing streak. I mean, they had wins over Southeast Ravenna, in Newton Falls and back-to-back weeks, which at the time looked like good wins there in week 3 and week 4. Then they beat LeBron. You're like, all right, yeah, I mean, they're doing what they're supposed to. Then they went up against Garfield, and Garfield shut them down. And they definitely lost confidence. Right. That's going to happen when you go up against Garfield. But they lost confidence. And then they win it against Liberty at home, mind you. These were back-to-back home games. And they lose again to the Leopards, who at that point in the season, had not looked great. They had a win over Campbell, and they win by 1 in your house. And then they had to go on the road over to John Napick, which is an epic stadium to play in. I love calling games over there. And you lose again. And I think this has to start sitting in the back of your mind of, it doesn't matter. We just can't win. I mean, the last 2 weeks have been one-score games against opponents that you looked after week 5 of the season, maybe even after week 6, champion should have looked at Liberty and Campbell and gone, we should steamroll them. They should have been the only team outside of Garfield on Brookfield's back half of the schedule that should have challenged them. Instead, now I'm coming in here to week 9, and I'm questioning whether or not they can even beat Crestview. And I don't know how to feel on Crestview. They've had a better final 4 weeks than, first 4 weeks. And I know there's some overlap in there. But I don't know if Champion's going to break this losing streak. This is in my opinion, their final chance for a win this year. I don't know if they're going to get it done.
It's understandable to be torn on it because, at least, like you said, Crestview has kind of had, it's been back and forth these last 4 weeks. Campbell win, Brookfield lost, LeBray win, Garfield lost. Garfield, you understand, but they at least put up 22 points. I mean, in the Champion game, I'm trying to pull their schedule back up here. In the when they played
Champion put up 14.
14. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but that against a team like Garfield, that is kind of a difference. So, the recency, you kind of want to go towards Crestview here, but I guess I'm going to still stay on the side of Champion. Say maybe they got this. They're due for one because these last 2 weeks they were due for one. They got to break through at some point.
They do need to. I'm going to go the other way with him, Mike. You say they need it. I'm rolling with momentum here. Momentum is telling me Crestview, they're playing better. Not great. No, not at all. They're not a great team whatsoever. But I think at the moment they're playing better football. And after, I think Crestview smelling blood in the water this week because Crestview beat Campbell 63-0, and Campbell just beat this Champion squad 21-14. If I'm Crestview, and I'm that coaching staff, I have those two scores painted on my walls all week long and go, you can beat them by 100 if you want. Because we know this team is capable of putting up points. We saw that in that game. I don't know what happened to that team in that one game on this season, but to me, that's been the turning point. They won that game 63-0, and they lost the 2 games they should have by about what they should have. And they beat LeBray. Probably would have liked to see him beat them a little better than 22-7. But I think right now, you look at Crestview and go, they won the games they were supposed to. You look at the beginning of the season, Salem Southern United. I don't think I would have picked them to win any of those games. I don't think I did. Brookfield Garfield, wouldn't have picked them. Campbell LeBray, yeah. Champion Newton Falls, Champion, I would have told you beginning of the year, that's probably going to be one of the closest games for them all season long. That's probably their best shot. I'm sticking with that thought that I think I would have had earlier in the year. I'm taking Crestview. I know it's on the road, but I've been over there in Champion. That crowd can get taken out of it. Newton Falls did it in their comeback. Champion held on at the end, but that's a different Champion team than we're seeing now. And that's why I'm taking Crestview. Sharks circling their prey right now in Champion this week.
I agree. That's a good pick. And I think even on the side of Champion, though, you lose a Campbell team last week on the road, a team with Campbell that has gotten blown out a lot of times this year at home or on the road, and you couldn't win that one. But I just feel like, neither team's that great. I think that's why it's coin flip. But I just think Champion, they're 2 hard losses they took these last 2 weeks in games they should have won.
Should have won, though. That's the problem for me. They should have won them, and they didn't. This is a game they should win. I don't think they will, though. Next game, it's going to be you should win this by 100. Ursuline over Youngstown East in conference matchup. This won't even be close. Should be a running clock after the half. I'm going Ursuline big in this one.
Same way here. You can't go against Ursuline here. They're just a really, really, really good football team against a team that's really not. So
yeah, I guess the team that's rebuilding in East. So
you expect a running clock in this one.
Another game. I want to say I expect a running clock. And I think I am going to. Southern, they're on the road. They're going into East Palestine, into Stream City, traveling from the Wigwam. I was just down there a week ago. And my thing with this team, they are the roughest, toughest, hard-nosed bunch of boys you will find. They went the distance with Valley Christian. And the entire time, I mean, they never let up. They were physical. They dominate you in the trenches. And they run that same offense that you see over in Garfield that makes it nearly impossible to stop. In fact, Valley Christian's win is the first time I've ever seen the wing tee get stopped at the high school level, because I've called Garfield twice. They won both of them using that offense. And the first time I see Southern using that offense, they go down. I think a big part of that was 0 completions in that game throwing the football. And like I said with Garfield in the Brookfield matchup, to help you have an opportunity to win this game, you have to take away the passes when they do decide to throw. If you can force them into the second and third and longs and they have to throw the football, that's when you have to take it away. And with the bad weather we saw a week ago affect this Southern offense, it really affected their offense's ability to run those trick plays that they like to use. They weren't really going double reverses. It was becoming a very simplified version of football because that weather made it so hard to hang on to the ball. And they went up against a physical team that if you're struggling to hold on, they would have knocked it out. So they kept it simple a week ago. I think they keep it simple here again. I still think they win it because they are a very, very good football team that I very much enjoyed watching last week. It was a great matchup to see. This one probably won't be, but week 10, back in the Wigwam against United, must-see football.
Yeah, I think the key here is it's sandwiched in between Valley Christian and United on your schedule is this matchup here. And I think that's the key because we keep talking about the weather too. With some of these good teams that are playing not so great teams, you can't let that affect it because especially when it's sandwiched in between two games like this. So I'm going to pick Southern in this one, but the key is for them is to not let it get ugly and can kind of make it feel uncomfortable. So they got to get out to a big lead too and kind of prepare themselves next week for United.
Yeah, I would say perhaps a trap game, but I don't think they fall for it.
I agree with you. I think I have more confidence in them to not allow that to happen, but you never know. With like you said, with all the other factors too that we're tying into it.
Also forgot to run this at the bottom. These are all the games going on this weekend here on the network. We do have a Saturday game, I believe, with Cardinal Mooney that we'll be talking about tomorrow on the show. I guess I will be talking about tomorrow. They have a 1 o'clock game against Steubenville, but we'll touch on that in tomorrow's show. Our next game after East and Southern, we have the 4-4-0 goal guys heading into St. John as Fairport Harbor is coming into town over there. Another game, I'm not really sure how I want to go. I think I'm going to go Harding. Ultimately, give me the Skippers because they've been more competitive in their last 3 games. When you look at St. John Ashtabula and you look at their last couple of games, they've been kind of run over, and especially the Wyndham game because obviously that's the most recent, common opponent, them and Matthews. Matthews basically did the same to both. The Skippers' defense was a little better against Matthews, but offensively against Wyndham, St. John lost 50-12. Harding lost, but it was 28-15. I think that's kind of the one difference for me going in. I'm going to take the Skips.
I agree with you too. I think, but these matchups the last 4 have been ugly, like you said. They've been pretty much total blowouts, but there's not really confidence for me on either side of this matchup. I think it's another one we were talking about earlier. There's not a whole lot to pick from, but I'm gonna agree with you on that side.
Next game, this is what I'm going to be on. Mike, it's your alma mater and maybe a big chance for an upset. Girard at 6-2. They've lost 2 out of their last 3 games, but they rebound against Hubbard a week ago. And now they come in against the Wildcats of Struthers, who we've seen cause a bit of problems for a couple of our best teams. I mean, look at what they've done. I mean, I know they haven't won some of these, but Streetsboro was a 1-point game. South Range was a 10-point game. Hubbard was a 1-possession game that went to overtime. Then they beat Lakeview. They beat Jefferson. And they beat Niles these last 3 weeks. This is a collision course of one team that's trying to go like this and another team that's kind of flatlining in Girard at the moment.
Yeah, but we talked about last week with that Hubbard matchup. It's going back to when I was in school. That was one that Girard usually did not win against Hubbard. I think to win that one at home too, 49-14, after you lose 2 games, South Range you could understand, but Poland, they probably should have won that one. And to have that one at home 49 tonight, 49-14, I think that was a momentum booster to try to get back on track. Obviously, the Struthers one, I think we even talked about this a couple weeks ago too. This is when we were kind of looking at the remaining schedule for Girard. That you can't fall into this one here. Struthers is a good team, average team, but I think Girard is better. And I think this is one going on the road. That kind of does not bode well for Girard going in this one because and pretty much every game they've had this year, they are on the road. So they found ways to deal with that. But at this point of the year, after, like you said, losing 2 of your last 3, and you get ready to make a playoff run, this one you got to win. This is your last chance to really get a momentum booster because this is a better matchup than the next week against Niles because Niles is not having a great year.
Right. But now for Girard, finally, Mike, they do drop out of the top spot in Division 4. West Branch has finally taken them over, and I think rightfully so. I think they were the better team.
Right.
Playing football and statistically wise, I mean, West Branch has all the numbers pointed their direction. Finally, I think the losses caught up to Girard. They do get a win back. And, you've said in past years, it's a game they don't normally win. I don't think Hubbard's having all that great of a year either, though.
No.
And that was a game. Hubbard's been bad on the road. They were 2-2 on the road coming into that game. And they go into a tough environment in Girard. Girard's having a good season. They've been packing those stands pretty well. And I think now after this kind of home and away bounce back and forth, they're back on the road again for Girard. And you look at them on the road, like you said, they're a good road team. They're 4-1. Well, Struthers ain't too bad at home. Despite them being 4-4, they are 3-1 when they've played at home, and they haven't lost since week 2 against Geneva, 42-20. At home, they beat Lakeview, Jefferson, and Aquinas. Aquinas was week 1, Jefferson and Lakeview 2 of the last 3 weeks, and they put up 40 points at home in 3 of their 4 matchups. This is going to be a really big. I think it's going to be close. I don't think either one of these teams is in a spot for the conference crown. That'll belong to, I believe it's going to be Poland or South Range, unless something chaotic was to happen in the last 2 weeks, which I'm not sure it can. Because I think South Range should have tiebreakers against both. But battle for third, potentially second. We'll see what happens with Poland. You still want to finish strong, and you want to take some momentum into the postseason. And if you're Struthers now going into this matchup, you're looking at a ranking at 16. If you knock off the number 2 team in your region as a 16 seed, you're going to be taking that in the postseason riding very high. This is must-win football at home for Struthers. I'm hoping when I'm calling this game tomorrow night that they have that stadium absolutely packed. I haven't been in a game this year where those stadiums have been full. This is a week I think it should be.
And I think on the side of Struthers too, that knocking off a team like Girard, if they are able to do that, these last 2 games they have against Girard and Poland are both at home. So that's another good factor for them to try to pull this off and get to where they want to be in the standings in playoff seeding. You have these 2 opportunities to close out. You're done being on the road for at least the regular season. You take advantage of that. And you're talking about stands being potentially packed for this game. I actually may have to go to this one. I might actually say.
We'll see you there. It ain't that far of a drive. Make that trip over to Struthers. It ain't that far.
No, it's not. Struthers, Camlet's my dad's neighborhood, so it's not far.
There you go. Make the trip.
Yeah,
call it on every Girard and Struthers fan. I don't care. I mean, I know YSN.
Football.
I know YSN's going to care about me saying this, but I don't want a single viewer. I want everybody in the stands. You could be in the stands listening to the call on your phone while it's going on. But I want
like Steve Bartman back in the day for the Cubs with the headset on while you're in person.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just set up at midfield, put all my stuff in the middle of the field, and go. All right, here we go. I want to be in the center of this because this is going to be something else.
Yeah, I'm
hoping it's close.
I think it has that potential. I think
Struthers has played people close all season long, so I don't really think that's going to be the problem of this
Girard,
becoming a blowout.
Girard, even the ones they won, the one against South Range they lost. That was one of their few close games. That one against Poland. That's the other thing. Struthers been a lot of closer games this year. Girard has kind of lacked in that department. So it could add up for a close one. We'll see. I think it's going to be entertaining.
Our next game, not going to be entertaining. Howland going into Canfield. Canfield's going to roll this one. It's going to be bad. After Howland lost on the road last week, 42-0, I think Canfield is going to have themselves a feast. They ate up East last week, 48-0. They got Howland this week, probably going to be a similar score line. And they got Boardman back at home to finish the year. This is a situation right now for Canfield. They're just tuning up for the playoffs.
And you're talking about last week with that Howland loss that, that was a bad one. They pretty much had a bad season the whole year, and Canfield is not. So that's what it comes down to.
Canfield, number 2 seed right now in Division III football for Region 9, just behind Chardon. At the moment, they would take on Villa Angela St. Joseph, who we just saw Ursuline kick the crap out of a week ago. So I really like where Canfield sits. They're sitting pretty to finish out the year. They should steamroll into the postseason, and we'll see where they can take it from there. I expect them at a minimum to hit the 3rd round. I would like to see them into a district championship this season. I think that's a minimum of what they can accomplish this year, especially with Brock Lauer, who's going to Iowa State to play quarterback. I mean, when you got an FBS level player on your roster at your quarterback position, he better be taking you pretty darn far.
They're tuning up for a good run here, I think. Yeah. Canfield, and that's the team they're playing is not. So
right. Team they're playing in Howland right now is a 25 seed with about 0 chance, if any, to make the postseason. I think they are already eliminated. I don't have the full list of people eliminated in just so yet, but I think they're probably on the outside and with no chance to get in. Next game is going to be a very good one. NE8 action, Poland at home against Jefferson. Poland, they've had a good win streak, Mike. They've played some really good football this year. They've won 4 of their last 5 games. Only losses are Cheney, Canfield, South Range. They're going to take that. And I think that they have a really good shot playing at home against Jefferson, who has lost back-to-back weeks now in conference play. I'd like to go into this one deep, but I don't think I really have a lot. I think Poland is playing better football. I think that they have shown the ability to win close games with games over Hubbard and Girard, and they've shown us ability to, win without scoring a touchdown like they did against Lakeview. It was 9-0 in that game, and they came out with a win. So they've shown multiple ways to win a game, so I'm going to go Poland over Jefferson, but I think it's going to be a good game.
I'm going Poland too, but like you said, it has not been pretty these last couple weeks, but they found ways to win. And I think that's, as long as you find ways to win, you can live with the results. They've been in some closer games. I think that kind of prepares some teams sometimes that, okay, we're due for a breakout game. I don't think it's going to be a breakout game against Jefferson because I was kind of thinking about picking Jefferson actually, but I'm going to stay on the side of Poland. I think they are, like you said, playing better football at the moment.
Next game should be a really good one. John Hay coming in out of Cleveland, won their last game against Collinwood, 32-0. Collinwood, though, just a 1-5 team. John Hay at 6-1, coming into town to take on the local Beavers, who come in 6-2. This is a premier matchup, but I think it's really going to tell us what we have here with this Beaver local. They're currently a 6 seed. They're a very good team. People are looking high on them. And you look for John Hay, who's not going to pull up for me, obviously. I can't find him on this list. That's fine. But you have a John Hay team that has been really good and has not lost on the road this season. They are 4-0 away from home. Granted, their home games, winless Cleveland Central Catholic, winless Orange, East Tech, who is 0-4, and Collinwood, who's a 1-win team. So they haven't played anybody on the road. In the games they played at home, well, they won beginning of the year, or actually they lost beginning of the year against the best team on the schedule to this point, in Scott, 14-6. Other home game was John Adams. Well, they're a 2-win school, and John Marshall 2 weeks ago is a 4-4 school. So you now have John Hay's entire schedule sandwiched between a loss to the best team on their schedule and now the next best team on their schedule. I don't really like their ability to take this game, and I think John Hay is going to finish with back-to-back losses. I'm taking the Beavers here because John Hay has Glenville next week, and Glenville is perfect so far in the season. They're 8-0, and then they're playing some really, really good football over there with head coach Ted Ginn Sr. Got to throw it in there. He has sent a lot of players to Ohio State, including, obviously, his boy. So I think we'll take. I'll take. I know they're not on our, but I'm taking Glenville next week too. John Hayes dropping back to back.
I'm rolling with you too on the side of Beaver. I just look at some of these scores too. That the scores do say sometimes a lot about some teams. 56 last week, 65, 62, 31, 58, 42. It's just a really, really good offense. You could look at some of the teams we're playing too. Obviously, I question that, but I think that their offense is rolling these last 2 weeks. I'm going to go with Beaver.
I like to see it. I just think when you look at it, John Hayes 6-1 record. I mean, it's kind of a pretender, record at the moment.
That's fair.
There's no weight behind it, and I think that's one of the big problems when you go into one of these big games. Sure, you look good. I'm sure you're a good team, better than average for sure. But are you a great team? I think Beaver Local has shown in quite a few games that they are a really good team, and that's why I think I like them here in this matchup. Yep. Our next one, not a matchup that I think is going to give us very much. Orange playing at home against 5-3 Lakeside. Those 4-4-0 and 4-4-0 and goal guys have really sold a lot of people on this Lakeside crew. They did lose last week to Kirtland. Yeah, who cares? It's Kirtland. But they beat Chagrin Falls. They beat West Geauga. They were in a one-score game against Geneva. I like Lakeside to roll over Orange in this game.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot here. Or we talked about Orange.
They're going to be squeezing some orange juice out of their out of their shorts by the end of this game because they're just going to be running over them.
Their socks, broken that one out yet.
I know. I just thought of it. Their socks are just going to be full of orange juice.
Yeah, I mean they've been doing that the whole year, not just this game.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lakeside, there's not much in this one.
Next one, I'd like to say there's something here, but Lakeview hasn't scored in the last. They've scored a field goal in the last 4 weeks, and now they're going up against South Range. South Range is going to make it another shutout. They're going to get a running clock here against Lakeview. It's in South Range, just makes this deadly. South Range has not lost a game. They probably will not lose a game. Skirpak has been absolutely a maniac for this team this season, and they've had really great players kind of all around. It has not been a one-trick pony. They are able to get it done all over the place with Shane Lindstrom. And I mean, you can run down the entire roster here if you really wanted to. I'm going to go South Range. I like them in a running clock in this game by halftime. I like Lakeview. I don't think they're a bad team, but they're not playing great football. They can't get the offense going. Their defense is fine the last 2 weeks, but they don't have an offense that is going to give them any half of a shot against South Range this week.
Yeah, this is another game I'm throwing up there. So there's not much in it because we've beaten the dead horse with how good South Range is all year. And when you're playing a team that has not scored a touchdown in the last 4 games, you want to score 3 points total in your last 4 games, and you're going up against South Range, there's nothing there. The South Range they're going to roll in this one.
Yeah, it ain't going to be pretty. Final game here to talk about on the show today, and we'll get back into more of it tomorrow on day 2 of our high school football extravaganza. Final game, it's another one. I don't think it's going to give us a ton, but Liberty on the road, 3-game win streak for the Leopards, and they're headed into LeBray, who obviously is 0-8. They've had a lot of struggles this season, and they probably will not be pulling off an upset. I'm taking the Leopards in this one. I think Liberty has done a great job turning this program around. Not afraid to make a quarterback change mid-season. I think that's the one thing. Bold. This Liberty team is bold. They have no problem going out there making change-ups on the fly. Most teams, Mike, at this point, you're like, yeah, all right. I mean, we're not playing great mid-season. We're content. We'll let the senior ride it out at quarterback. They went, we got a freshman down here who's playing really great on JV, and I think on JV. And why don't we give him a shot? We're not going anywhere with our senior quarterback because he's not a quarterback. One, he's a tight end that has played at the quarterback position. He's getting college offers for tight end, not for quarterback. That's the difference there. So they make the change, and I respect him for making the change. With Tyson Lawrence Watson behind the helm, they're playing really, really good football. I mean, this is a completely different team than we saw the first 4 weeks than we've seen the last 3. In the first 4 weeks of the season, they put up a total of 34 points. They put up 34 points alone. They put up 35 against Champion. They put 42 up against Campbell, and they put up 20 against Newton Falls. Almost all 3 of their games, they scored more points than they did in the first 3 games of the year.
And I think too, look at the way they were playing. There's those 4 losses they opened up that before they made a change. Scored a total of what, if my math's right, 34 points.
Yeah.
So, and then you make changes up. You're scoring 42, 35, and 20. And I think in this matchup too, you like you said, to go away from a guy that's older to go for a freshman, I think that's another part of the bold move, because we even talked about it. We'll go
back-to-back seasons they've done it too, by the way.
Well, and it's working out so far, and I think I'll go back to what we were talking about college all year, and I'll use my team as an example. What do we keep saying? If there's any instances where Sean Clifford's struggling, this team's going nowhere, make the change to your small guy, to your younger guy. That is the future. And that's what Liberty just did, and I think they're clearly playing better than LeBray right now. They got some momentum, and I think they're setting themselves up pretty good up to end of the season. I mean, it's going to be tough next week against Garfield, but
I don't think they have much of a chance, but I think that they have an opportunity to
get
some offense in that game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I know Tyson Lawrence Watson was the quarterback in the 47-6 loss. I think that was the perfect introduction, because that was the hardest defense he was going to face all season long in Brookfield. They were going to give him every single pass rush, every different look that he could have handled, and they lost by 40 points. Since then, this kid has not lost, and I love that mentality out of him and this group around him. They're a really, really good team. I mean, it's a full squad. I'm taking Liberty here. Give me a running clock over LeBray.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I got Liberty too as well.
All right. Well, that finishes off our high school portion. Mike, let's final 8 minutes of the show. I do want to pull this in. MLB postseason talk.
Yes, sir.
Cleveland Guardians in New York. Game tonight has been postponed due to weather in New York. They were kind of talking about that on the broadcast the other day, that if there was going to be rain, they were just going to cancel it right away, and they ended up doing just that. So the one game on tonight, Seattle and Houston. Houston leads the series 1-0 after an absolute rocker ended it off game one. I mean, a walk-off home run. How classy to do that into the postseason. So they lead 1-0. New York took the first game against Cleveland, who has barely found a way to score here in the postseason. They have a total of 4 runs on 3 home runs. Yeah, that ain't Guardian baseball. Series is tied over on the NL side for both groups. Series between Phillies and the Braves, and the Padres and the Dodgers. Both knotted up at 1 apiece. What has been your thoughts so far, though, on this postseason?
So I'll be quick on the National League side. I think they're kind of the same. Padres found a way to get one last night, going back home, where they haven't had a home playoff game in a long time. So their fans are going to be fired up for game 3 of that series. And I think on the side of the Phillies, you did your job. You won game 1. You took, like the Padres, you got one on the road. You're going back home. On the American League side, I questioned the way Seattle was going to respond after that loss, because they had that game in the bag. The whole game. They were up 7-, I think the score I saw was 7-3. I went to actually grab something to eat. I came home with 7-5, and then 2 minutes later, that's when I saw the home run. So for them, they've had a great year. I'm not writing them off yet, but you got another game here where you should have had game 1 on the road, and you got another road game in Houston, try to steal another one. And I think on the side of Cleveland, there's not just because it's 2 of the people on the show are a fan of them, but I think there's a lot to talk about in this matchup, because a whole lot of people outside of Cleveland fans weren't really giving them a chance, which I don't think was. I think I was kind of irresponsible, because there's always a chance of baseball. But I think, and I even said this to you the other day off the show before the series started, I think in the 9-inning game and the 15-inning game against Tampa Bay, who Tampa Bay is not the Tampa Bay of old over the last couple of years, they only scored 3 runs in that series in those 2 games. And then you come into this one, you only score 1 against the Yankees. And I keep seeing people like some analysts say, "Oh, is it just they're facing tough pitching with Garrett Cole and some of the Tampa Bay Rays? The Rays do have good pitching." I don't want to hear that, because it's the playoffs. You're going to face tough pitchers. If you can't score runs off them, then you're just not going to win. So they have another chance to do it. It's going to be a tall task. At least they got Shane Bieber going against the next matchup, but you're going against Nestor Cortez, who they call him Nasty Nestor for a reason. So it's looking not great for Cleveland, but there's baseball, I think, a chance, and that goes for any matchup I was just talking about.
Yeah, I think my thought here with the Seattle-Houston series, I know it was game 1. Seattle just lost, though. In my opinion, they had momentum. Giving up that lead, 7-3. I mean, in on a walk-off fashion. To me, that's kind of saying good night. Houston just went, "Oh, that was cute. Goodbye." And I think that was kind of the message I got after that first game. I don't think Seattle really has a shot now, because I think Houston just went in and they went, "We took your best and we still beat you." Good luck there. So I like Houston to actually get a sweep in that series. I don't think they have much shot. And unfortunately, I mean, I think I still do like New York to sweep Cleveland. And I know this is my own team, but I went into the year and into this postseason, I went, we have been historically bad against New York in the postseason, specifically in the ALDS. It has been one of our Achilles heels. And it's a super young team. And you're going up against experience. You're going up against a salary that I think they said on the broadcast was 3 or 4 times as much as what Cleveland spent, maybe more. Yeah, there's going to be close games like it. I don't think it's going to be blowouts, but you're going up against really great pitching, and you're at a whole new level, especially playing in New York, as we've seen the first 2 games. The crowd is a huge impact. Coming back home might help Cleveland, but I don't think it'll be a sweep, but I still have to give that edge to New York. They got big-time players, and they all show up in big times, in big-time moments, and that's why they get paid what they do. Cleveland, they have guys that are going to be that. They have those on their roster, yeah, but they're not quite there yet, and that's the one thing for me. Phillies, Atlanta, great series so far for them. I mean, 7-6 in the first one, 3-0 in the second. I think that's about as balanced as can be. That's what you want to see. That's what you want the postseason to look like. And that's what we've got so far from it. On the other side, with San Diego and the Dodgers, I'm a little surprised San Diego took it game 2, 5-3. And they flipped the scoreboard around from game 1. I don't know. I wasn't sold on the Padres for the postseason. Regular season, I like them. But I thought coming in, I know they beat some good pitching in the Mets, but with what the Dodgers have done this season, I mean, historic numbers they put up, I thought they were going to come in. I thought they were going to roll in their first matchup. Padres hitting is going to keep them honest here. I don't know if they're going to keep it up. I mean, it's very hard to continue to hit this well if you're the Padres. Dodgers, we've seen it all year long. Doesn't matter who they go up against, they can hit. Now we have to rely on the Padres to go out there and do it. I mean, this is what, best of 5?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So best of 5 series in the divisional round. Can you do it 5 straight games? Because I think they're going to need to take this 5 to take home the win in the series.
Well, I'll quickly say this before we get off. I think for Seattle, I'm not totally writing them off yet, because after that terrible loss you had in game 1 where you should have had it, they got their absolute best. And this guy, the reason they got Luis Castillo, that's your starter in this game too. That's a comfort zone. I think for Cleveland, yeah, you could sit here and say, we can't let Aaron Judge beat us, but you still got Rizzo and Stanton and all these other guys behind them that that you have to worry about. So I think it's just too much for them. And on the side of the Padres, I don't expect them to beat the Dodgers, but the way they were playing coming into this postseason, they weren't playing great in the regular season, but after that series against the Mets, they're playing pretty confident baseball right now. And after you hang 4 home runs on Max Scherzer in game 1, they're playing pretty confident.
They are. Well, that's all the time we have for day 1 of the high school football extravaganza. I'm Alec Caberna. That's Mike Wolfgang. I'll be back doing the show tomorrow. No Matt for day 2 of our high school football extravaganza. But that does it here on your sports network. I believe Power Hour coming up next.